The topic for today is how to test, deploy, and upgrade Employee Center. I get this question so many times. What is the best way to test it? Should we do it in production? Should we do it in subprod? How do we move Employee Center from one instance to the other? What considerations to make that would make sure, like, you know, we are set up for a smoother upgrade, how to upgrade, and so on. So we will try to address all those questions as much as possible in this session today. To introduce myself, my name is Pooja Gupta. I'm a staff product manager with the Unified Employee Experience product team, and I'm joined by two of my esteemed colleagues who are on the engineering team. One is Rohan Rasane. I'm sure you've heard from him before in this session, and also Ankit Kumar. In addition to these two and the three of us, we have more people from the product team joining in. Everywhere from like testing, the QA team, and engineering team, and just the product team as well. So please ask your questions, and you're free to go technical if you want to. What we will cover today, we will cover how to work with different application scopes. As you are familiar, if you've had your hands dirty with Employee Center, there are multiple different application scopes shipped with Employee Center, and it can be sometimes confusing on how to use them, what they are for. So we'll try to give you some context behind it, and also share some best practices on how to work with them, and so on. The second, we'll talk about how to move Employee Center changes to production. So you're most likely working on subprod environment, and how do you move to production? Like how do you create update sets? What can be captured in an update set? What cannot be captured? How do you work with that? So we'll talk about those things as well. And then finally, we'll talk about how to test Employee Center and what are the different options available for it. Now, I do want to say that, you know, Employee Center may be new for a lot of you folks, but there are many people on the call who have been joining these sessions every month. So Employee Center is fairly familiar for them. So we're going to keep steps to migrate from Service Portal to Employee Center out of scope for this conversation. How to configure individual widgets out of scope. So all out of scope, all the basic functionality is out of scope. Please focus on the topic that we have for this session while asking your questions. But there is a lot of content that we have available. So I want to highlight a few of those. If you have those questions, you know, place to go. So community, great place for, like, you know, self-serving yourself, for like a lot of FAQs, implementation guide, best practice guidance, feature overviews. So I highly encourage you to try that. You would see links for these coming in your chat as well. We have deployment office hours. So if you are currently in the process of deploying Employee Center, I encourage you to join these office hours. These are also monthly, and our next session is going to be on March. The difference between these office hours and Academy is that we have a topic in Academy. We are kind of, it is discussion, but we do have like more sharing from ServiceNow side. Office hours, we don't bring an agenda. It is your time. If you don't have questions, we'll like end the meeting. It's like that. So it's your time to just free flow questions, and there are no slides that we bring in. Now, if you are thinking about how to set up taxonomy, there are multiple resources. We're not going to share all of these via chat today, but because there are quite a few of these, but you will have access to these slides. So all of these links will be available to you. I'm just highlighting here that we have a lot of support available if you are just looking for help on how to set up Employee Center taxonomy, or thinking about how to migrate from Service Portal to Employee Center. There's a ton that's available. We also have resources like a Now Learning course on Employee Center Essentials. It covers everything from like all the different features, related capabilities, governance, and so on in our newer release for the Employee Center Essentials course. So highly recommend this for your team who's going to be working on Employee Center. And then we have self-implementation resources from our Now Create part of the world. where you can see a success path. There are things like Taxonomy workbook, which are extremely helpful. So I highly encourage you to use all of these resources to get help. Now let's dive deep into the topic that we have for today, which is the upgrading, testing, and deploying Employee Center. And the first one that I want to start off with is working with Employee Center application scope. Now, what is an application scope? So if you think about just ServiceNow and how the instance is architected, typically an application will be shipped within their own application scope. And that is true for Employee Center as well. So if you think about Employee Center, we have its own applications that are on store. Each application on the store ships with its own application scope. And these application scopes are important because they identify the code associated with that application, and then they restrict access to that application files and data for anything else in the system or in the instance to access. So it's helpful from a security standpoint. You don't want the data that is in your application or like anyone in the instance to be able to make changes into it. So it's an important way to secure and control what's happening in your instance. And if you're making configurations changes in anything in that application, you typically need to be in that application scope. And in the screenshot, you can see an example of what that looks like. And this, if you're working in ServiceNow platform, this must be pretty familiar. So what are the scopes associated with Employee Center? And I want to highlight those, but also give you some context behind it. So if you think about just Employee Center standard, it is shipped with the Employee Center store app. And most of the functionalities that are associated with Employee Center standard, whether that is the header, whether it is the mega menu navigation, favorites, popular topics, footer, topic pages, all of that are associated with Employee Center. But if you remember, and if you know this context, Employee Center was created out of a pre-existing portal, and that portal was called Employee Service Center. So we also have a dependent app called Employee Center Core, and you would see this often in your instances, and you may have to make some changes in that Employee Center Core if you are touching anything that was considered legacy. So to restate what I'm saying, Employee Center Core was essentially the legacy code that we brought in when we were updating the old portal and making it Employee Center. In an ideal world, if you're just working with setting up Employee Center, you wouldn't need to make any of the changes in Employee Center Core, and most of your changes would lie on just the Employee Center. Now, Employee Center is built on the Service Portal tech stack, and a lot of things that are on the Service Portal tech stack available for everyone, not just as an Employee Center deployment per se, are included in things in the global scope. So things like search, my request, shopping cart, these are all Service Portal tech stack capabilities, which are available for all the portals that you may be creating on the Service Portal tech stack, are all in the global scope. Now, when we are making new enhancements and new features, we are always trying to maintain it in the Employee Center side of it to make this easy. Was there anything else? Yeah, so yeah. And just to reiterate, the legacy code is in Employee Center. Now, there are also other applications like Employee Profile, which are shipped separately from Employee Center. And capabilities associated with Employee Profile will be found in that application. If you see Employee Center Pro, there are additional applications and different scopes. And this is really important. This was really important for us to do because the licensing is associated with these applications. So Employee Center Pro related capabilities are all part of the Employee Center Pro store app. So App Launcher, Organizational Chart, POS Search Wedges, or Manager Hub, they're all part of the Employee Center Pro. Now, Employee Center Pro has a really strong set of applications as its dependency, and these are all the applications that feed into the employee communication space. So content publishing and content experiences are like one of the main ones. So content publishing, everything that you can see from like working with styled content, working with banner announcements, the video carousel widget, rich content or microsites, events, anything that we have associated with employee communication is typically in the content publishing app. And content publishing is a dependent app for AC Pro. So you're not downloading content publishing or content experiences separately. You're typically only downloading AC Pro. But these are available separately because you could apply them in some other portal as well. Nicole, is App Launcher same as My Applications widget? It is the same, yes. So the backend name for the widget is App Launcher. The campaigns functionality, if you're familiar with it, it's part of the content experiences widget, application scope. So that's where the capability associated with campaigns lies. Then we have additional applications like content governance. Let me give you some context because content governance might be relatively new for folks here. We have an end-to-end workflow predefined for making communications requests to the communications team. So let's say I'm a user and I have some communication that needs to be made on the portal. I can use a request form, which is predefined by ServiceNow, to make that request. That request will go to the content author who can work on it, share it as a task for me to review in the same portal view, add approvers if needed, and then go directly to like preview the final content and publish it. We have an end-to-end workflow associated with doing this whole thing, which is typically managed via emails in organizations, and that's called content governance. So there's a separate app for it, and the workflow associated with it is part of that app. And there are many other application scopes that you would see, like there's Manager Hub, there is content analytics. So so I see someone, Olivia, you're asking about how to get campaign metrics. I would suggest exploring content analytics functionality. So you can plug in with different systems to run analytics on your campaigns and other communication content on the portal. So try it out, and happy to take questions on that later.
So just to add on to what Pooja said, like we had a constant request from our customers where customers and their communications teams saying that, okay, there are application requests coming up to them to send communications, but they cannot track it. There's no way to approve it. There's no way to audit them. Like why this content was created or who created it and who approved it. So content governance serves that purpose. And there are more features that we are adding in the August release. So yeah, we'll keep you posted on that.
Thanks, Rohan. Now we spoke about everything, but there is one particular module that I want to go deeper into, and that's the content taxonomy module. Now, it is among the few capabilities within. Let me see. So this is the one. Let's try to, can I? Yeah. So this one. So it is among the few capabilities that we have kind of aligned with the family release on. That code still lies in global scope and is associated with family release. So just want to let you know that. So if you are updating, you would often see that there are dependencies associated with the family release if there are changes made in the content taxonomy. And as you're familiar, we do ship an out-of-box taxonomy. That is the employee taxonomy over here. This is part of an employee experience taxonomy scope. So if you're making changes to the out-of-box taxonomy, you would see that you are updating the employee experience taxonomy scope. Now, here's what we recommend. If you're just playing around with your employee center, you're trying to get the feel of it, and you're just trying to set it up for like a demo for your stakeholders, use the out-of-box taxonomy, make some minor changes that you need to. If you're actually setting up your own taxonomy, you should clone the out-of-box taxonomy and make changes to that cloned version of the out-of-box taxonomy. And of course, the clone that you will create, whatever scope that you create the clone in, that's what scope it will lie in. So if you create it in the global scope, then that's where it is. If you create it in the employee center scope, that's where it will be. And the content mapping that is associated within the topic, it's not in any scope because it is not associated with any application table or sys meta table, and we'll expand on that a little. So to recap, the content taxonomy is family, it's in global scope. The out-of-box taxonomy is in a separate app. It's something that you should only be using if you are doing a demo, and you should create a cloned version of it and make changes to that cloned version in the scope that you want to work in. Let's talk about best practices. So of course, you should be working in sub-prod environment as much as possible. Especially if you are in a new deployment, you could potentially work in product and in production, and we have seen many organizations do that. It's not going to harm anything because ultimately it's a new portal that you have not shared the link with anyone else. So if it's a brand new implementation, or if it's like you have only service portal deployed, so you have /sp and no ESC, you could be working in prod environment as well. The configuration changes, we recommend that you make all of those in the existing scope. You don't need to work with a custom scope to do these configuration changes. And I often get this question, configurations are not customized. A configuration in the sense like, you want to define quick links you are adding quick links to the quick links widget. You are making any changes in terms of like, what kind of task details are made available on the My Task page. These are all configuration related changes. And you don't need to work in a custom scope for that. And if you're making any customization in a widget, you should always clone the widget and make your customizations in that widget, in that cloned version of that widget. And this kind of helps with smoother upgrade. And like I said, when you create your own taxonomy topics, you should be like cloning it and create. We typically say you can just work out of the global scope. It makes it easy. We have a demo shortly in a few minutes where Ankit will show how you can separate the small change that you have made and create a separate update set. So you don't have to update the whole scope. There are things like that you could also explore. But you don't need to create a custom scope, is what I'm saying. Now let's talk about moving from sub-prod to prod. You need update sets to be able to move from sub-prod to prod. And I'm pretty sure like people here are familiar what that is, but just to set some context, it's a set of configuration changes that are captured in the form of an XML file that you basically extract from one place and you import it in a different instance. Anything that is a sys metadata table, so basically configurations that you are making and those configurations are being fed in an application table, those are captured as an update set automatically in ServiceNow. So these are, like I said, changes like the task configuration or to-dos configurations, the variables and the variable choices that you're making. All of that will automatically get captured as an update set when you're trying to do. But the simple data or data associations that you're making, they're not considered sys meta table or sys metadata. So those are not captured as part of an update set, and you have to manually fetch them. And we'll highlight just in a few minutes how to do that. A perfect example of what this is all your taxonomy associations. So your topics will be captured, but if you are so your topics are captured in the update set because they are associated they are available as this meta table, but your content mapping is not captured. And the way you do that is essentially if you go to your connected content, you right click on the top menu, and there's an export button that you will get over here. And you just say export an XML, and when you go in your actual instance, you say import XML, and all the content mapping will be imported from the subprod environment to prod environment. Now let me pause here and tell you one thing. Many organizations choose to build their taxonomy structure in production. So it's not unusual to do that. And there are two reasons for it. One is typically, like especially in organizations who are not extremely mature in managing their subprod environments, the data that sits in the subprod environment is going to be different from prod environment. So what the mapping that you do in subprod environment might not be valid in the prod environment. Secondly, even if you do it in the subprod environment, you will have to make sure you do the mapping almost again in prod, because there will almost always be a few more additional content or different things that you will have to validate. Okay. Now, here's the process. I'm not going to go too super deep in it because Ankit is going to just highlight how we capture the update sets and what are the different options that you can work with. But you'll have the slides so you can review it later. Ankit, you want to just share your screen?
So
Yeah,
Pooja,
thank you,
I
Pooja.
think there was a raised hand for a bit. I don't know. I don't see that anymore, but I think we had that.
Yeah, I see a couple of raised hands. Let's just do the demo and then we can take the questions. Yeah, Jen and Olivia, we'll get back to you. Ankit, over to you.
Yep, thank you, Pooja. Let me share my screen. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope you guys are able to see my screen. So the agenda of this demo is I would be basically showing how to create the update sets in the Employee Center, how we would be tracking the customizations inside that. Let me log in. Yeah, the first step which we usually recommend is to create the local update set to track the customizations. So I'm going to do that now. So before creating the local update set, we should be firstly changing the application scope. So I'm just changing the application scope to Employee Center. After doing that, we can create the new update set in Employee Center scope to track my changes. So once we will do that, this track changes would be my current scope, and whatever changes I would be doing in Employee Center scope, it would start tracking those. So for an example, I'm taking an example of quick links widget. So for going that, I'm just moving to the widgets. So once you will navigate to the quick links, basically we can go and do whatever changes we want to do. We want to do a CSS changes, or we want to add some server script code changes. For now, I am just adding the comment over here to track my changes. Okay, I think this is Yeah. So once we will move over there, we can add, like suppose I want to override one of my API, or if I want to do some changes. For now, I'm just adding the comment say over here to track my changes. So once we will do that and save it, it will start tracking my changes. And if you will go to the update sets, we will start seeing those changes. So whatever changes I'm doing. So after completing those changes, I can move my update set to the completed state and save it. And then we can export that XML for that update set. After exporting it, we can re-import into our prod instances. Uh, and if suppose we want to basically clone a widget itself, I am showing the second thing now. I'm creating a new update set for tracking my cloning of the widget and the changes which I would be doing in clone of my widget. So yeah, now we can navigate to the widgets. We can take an example of this widget. We can clone this widget. So once we clone this widget, this would be automatically created in the Employee Center scope. And after saving it, it would again start showing into my update set. So after cloning this widget, I can do my CSS changes or my server script changes, whatever changes is required. So after completing that, we can again navigate to the local update sets. And if we will see this, we can see that our custom copy of actions widget is already present there. Again, we can follow the same process. We can mark that as complete, save, and then I can export this update set to my system, and then I can move this update set from my subprod to prod. Yeah, this is what I have to show the update sets. Pooja, do you want to take over?
Yep, thanks, Ankit. I'm getting a lot of questions. Like this was very helpful, and I hope everyone else also feels the same. But I'm getting some questions. I'm seeing some questions on the Q&A panel related to why we are following this approach for content taxonomy, for migrating updates to content taxonomy. And I want to reiterate. It's just in the way the platform functions. And Rohan, please add to that explanation. Connected content is not captured as sys meta table, and only the sys meta table gets into the update set. So you have to do a manual fetch of this this information if you want to move from subprod to prod.
That's correct. Yep. There are a few other things because it's a legacy thing. It's already a table, and that is more at a global scope rather than the employee center. So at this point, we don't plan to make it as a metadata kind of a table where once we do that, we could create an update set, track it and all. So that's the reason we are saying that create the record, export them as XML, and then import it. Hope that answers.
Thanks, Rohan. Hope that helps. Let me see. There were a few hand raised. Jenny, I have allowed you to talk. Could you go off mute and ask your question? Dave, I see your hand raised. I've allowed you to talk as well, so you can ask your question. Okay, it seems we have some issues in having people unmute, but please put your questions on Q&A, and let's keep moving ahead. And I think we'll have time for like more questions in the end, so we can do a little bit more of live engagement at that time. So let's talk about how to test Employee Center. There are multiple different types of testing that you can do. So the first one that you should, of course, have, like first best practice that you, of course, need to think about is recruiting a representative sample of test users.
Hello?
So, yeah, is that Dave?
Yes. Oh, somehow I got unmuted. Sorry about that.
No worries. Go ahead.
I had a question around that content, exporting content to a taxonomy. So I know, for example, in taxonomy, kind of, for example, IT, HR, whatever. For example, IT, we would add a bunch of subcategories, and we add connected contents, for example, catalog items or knowledge bases. And those connected contents come from different scopes. So when we import, update set actually or captures like contents from different scope. How do we handle that? One. And second, when, for example, one of the knowledge base is retired or no longer, is there a way we can automatically sync that it does not show up in Employee Center? Because I had the situation that when you add the import the content from to a taxonomy, and that content, or for example, catalog item or knowledge base is no longer available, but it's still that related list, new record in the connected content exists in Employee Service Center.
Rohan, add to it, but I'll try my best to answer both these questions. First, I think when you were exporting as in an XML format over here, it's just a mapping of where the content sits and what it is mapped to. So even if the content is sitting in different scopes, it would still be captured in the XML file. That's my understanding. And Rohan, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, awesome. And for your second part, could you help me understand when you had this knowledge base that had retired, did the content just show up as a connected content on topic, or did that content also show up on the user side of the topic pages?
It does not show up on the user side, but it still shows up under connected content. Because once it's retired, people won't be able to see. However, we still can see that record under connected content.
Okay, and that is by design. So are you saying that you don't want to see or you want some sort of indication that this is retired and connected?
Yes. For example, if I move that specific knowledge article from one category to another, but it still actually shows up under, unless you manually remove it from that specific item. So it does not automatically switch when you move to one to another.
Okay. I don't know if we do that automatically yet, but I'm going to take it as a feedback and investigate into it.
Okay, that's, I was hoping if it was kind of being fixed, but thanks for the answer.
Thanks, Dave. In the interest of time, I am going to go ahead and finish the content on testing, and we can go back to the questions. Thank you, Dave, for participating in the live engagement. I always love that. So the first best practice was that you should always have a sample set of test users identified, not at the very end of your deployment, from the very beginning of your deployment, because ultimately you want to do different kinds of tests. And one of the first test cases that we recommend from a design standpoint is to do usability testing. And usability testing is different from user acceptance testing. Usability testing is more about just observing what people are doing, how they are using. Is the platform intuitive enough, or is the portal, intuitive enough for them to do what they want to do? That's what you are kind of inherently testing with the usability testing. And we have some details on how to conduct this and This is like expert guidance from our own design team, which is in the link over here. And we can share it on chat as well. The second testing is more around user acceptance testing. And I know like almost everybody does that. Once you have completed, you have deployed, you would want to have demo users, at least 5 to 6 members of like various roles. And essentially you are testing different scenarios and use cases that you have deployed on the portal. A must-do step, both on the sub-prod side as well as on the production side. Now, I want to highlight one more thing, which is in the last point over here. ServiceNow has automated testing framework, and there are some quick start tests that are shipped for Employee Center as part of it. So I highly recommend you to try those, and it will help you at least test all the basic functionality that should be working for a good experience on Employee Center. And then anything that you have customized or custom use cases that you have, you would need to add on to these quick start tests. So some rules that I'm highlighting: start thinking about your test users from the very beginning, because it's not about just user acceptance testing, it is also about usability testing. So you want people from different personas partnering with you from the very beginning of your deployment. When it comes to testing the taxonomy structure, a lot of people have asked me, like, we want to evolve the taxonomy, and like we don't want it to be static, and how do we do that in the system, in the platform? The answer is you don't test the taxonomy structure in the platform. If you are testing the taxonomy structure in the platform, there are a lot of different design elements that are going to dilute or impact or your results of the study. You want to do a separate test, which is basically just focus on your taxonomy structure. And the one that we recommend is basically doing a tree test. We have heard from customers who sort of do a card sorting exercise to get to a taxonomy structure that makes sense. Once you do that card sorting exercise, your next step is to do a tree step. And the tree test is essentially validating that people are able to get to the right content following the tree structure that you have created for them. And there are a lot of tools that are available for it. MUIQ, TreeJack are among those. It's not very time consuming. It's like 15 minutes per participant. And the more number of participants you engage, or more diverse number of participants you engage, the better it is. And there are some instructions on this slide. Both the card sorting and tree test exercises are heavily used within ServiceNow when we are guiding customers, at the same time when we are deploying or building our own out-of-box taxonomy for Employee Center. So important to have this in your planning, especially if you are modifying your taxonomy structure, if you have one that is already working and you are looking to completely redo it. How do I test Employee Center in production before go live? And we'll talk about all the different scenarios here. But I do see a question around A/B testing. Rohan, you want to take that one?
I'm just going through the questions. A lot of questions.
Okay, so, let me read it out.
Yeah.
Is there a way to roll out Employee Center Pro in a staggered approach? Like, can we do random A/B testing and so on?
Sure. Yeah, so I think the next slide should cover that. But to give a sneak peek, I think you can create pages and target it to a pilot audience to start with, and then go on adding audience to that role. We'll see more of that in the next slide.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely, and we'll talk about it. But I do want to highlight one thing. You like when we think about a staggered approach, there are different things that people are thinking. You cannot limit the portal per se completely. Like anyone who has the link to the portal and has access to it will be able to get into it. You can't have limited access defined for the portal. And it's very hard to do a pure A/B testing, which would say if you are user A, you get into this experience, versus if you are a user B, you get into the other experience. You cannot do that. If you are migrating from a different portal, or if you're implementing Service Center for the first time, what you could potentially do is identify a set of early adopters and give them the new link. You could also, if there is a way to like divert or like divert the URL, if that is what is it called. I think that's what it is called. So when they log into the portal, they are redirected to Employee Center portal. That is possible if you are in these two scenarios, because it's ultimately a completely new URL. But if you're upgrading from Employee Service Center, which is our old portal, to Employee Center Pro, both these portals are /ESC. So it's not that simple to do what you could do in terms of, defining early adopters. So what Rohan is talking about is that, what you can potentially do in this scenario is work out of a service portal page that is not currently linked with your user-facing experience. And you can limit access to just that page with your early adopters or test users. You want to make sure that you're rendering that page to Employee Center and share that URL with your test users. And here are the steps for it. So we say clone the Employee Center page. Let's say you are updating the EC Pro dashboard, which is the Employee Center Pro homepage. You make changes in the cloned version of it. You can define roles. So if you would see the screenshot over here, so you can define roles to say these are the people who it is used for. So like, Rohan has it defined as EC pilot users. So you could say, here are the pilot users that I want to test the new experience with. Make this page available only for those. And then when you are rendering it on Employee Center, that's an option that you get. So like you get a new URL, which is over here, and you can say that it is a pilot. It has the ID associated with your page. And once you have tested, once you're good, you can make this page the default page for all your users. So this is not like an automatic redirect for the users, but it's a workaround that you could use to sort of test your design while you have a portal in production live and in use. Does this make sense? Any questions on this? Sorry, feel free to go, raise your hand if you have additional questions on this approach. Okay. That's all I had in terms of content, but we can take some more questions and go from there. Let's see. So David is asking, aren't KB categories and service catalog categories explicitly unconnected to the taxonomy by design? So yes, David, they're not directly connected, but when you are defining your taxonomy, what you're essentially doing is mapping the content in those categories to the taxonomy. So yes, the categories is not connected to the taxonomy, the content is by design. And what you are extracting in the XML is the mapping to the content, not the categories. As the issues are found in testing the efficacy of the taxonomy, how do we resolve them? For example, if our Netherlands employees keep using US benefits result, which does not have. Keep saying, okay. So that's a good question. I think when you are doing a tree test, there are two parts of your question. So if you're doing a tree test, you would want to evolve, like as you are saying, something is not, people are not able to reach a particular topic that they should be reaching. You would want to try different combinations and see which one works better. You could also like redo the cart sorting and see if there are some gaps from that one point. But the example that you are highlighting, which says like Netherlands employees keep seeing the US benefit results, I think the root cause for that could be something else. Ideally, your Netherlands employees should not be able to even see the US benefits results. So what that is suggesting to me is that the content that you have associated for US benefits is available for Netherlands employees as well, which should not be the case. So I would say the personalization aspect, or like, you know, the relevance of the search results or the content on the portal depends on how well you have defined the restrictions or availability of your content. So make sure you are looking for that.
So to add on, you could use content publishing to create the content and target it to a particular audience, and then tie that to a taxonomy. So that way you can limit who can access what. So that could be an option if you are using EC Pro.
Thanks, Rohan. Olivia, I see your hand up. You wanna let me allow you to talk. You wanna go off mute and ask your question?
Yes, hi. Thank you again for this time. You can hear me okay, correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was just wondering about, so I was looking to get some metrics on campaigns that we've posted. And so I installed like the content analytics plugin in Sandbox, which was directed to me from our ServiceNow architect on like our ITSM side. So I downloaded it in Sandbox, but then like when I'm trying to actually get metrics for clicks and see if it's actually working, all of the dashboards come back with 0. And then also just trying to understand how like the campaign bundles, just like the process. And I have not been able to find very many, like I haven't really been able to find a course or anything. So I was just seeing if there's additional help, or someone could spend time with me, you know, in that space.
I can speak on that, Pooja.
Sure.
So that's a great feedback, Olivia. We are constantly working to add more troubleshooting kind of stuff in the documentation. So that this feedback helps. But if you want someone to take a look at your instance, I think the best way would be to create a case on the support side that we have, and then one of our support persons or our product team can jump on it and see what's happening. We will try to add more documentation and best practices around campaigns for sure.
Okay, thank you. So I'll put in a case and just provide this detail.
Yep, sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Olivia. And if there is a lot of interest, please put on chat. We can make one of the future Academy sessions focus on this as well. So
that would be amazing, but that's just me. I'm biased.
Like, you know, use the chat, give us some thoughts on like whether it's a one-off thing or you all struggle with content analytics on campaigns. So happy to do a session on that. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions. Karen, you are allowed to talk. Please go ahead and
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I had a question around how much we can leverage from existing SP portal. We are in SP portal right now and planning to migrate to EC Pro this year. So we're trying to figure out how much we can leave as is and plan to continuously migrate after the first, go live, trying to figure out what our MVP is. So we have questions around how much can we leverage existing pages that we have created in SP and simply connect them to the mega menu or others in EC Pro.
I honestly, the answer is it depends on what you're trying to migrate. EC is Employee Center is on the service portal tech stack. So you can use all or none of your customizations or pages from Service Portal and make them available on Employee Center as well. So that's definitely possible. What I would encourage you to think about, and is as you're thinking about your migration approach, think about what you can use out of box from Employee Center, and also do a comparison of, here's how we did things in Service Portal, and here's how a newer version of doing that particular use case is on Employee Center. If that doesn't fulfill, only then think about migrating over the customizations or custom Service Portal things into Employee Center. But here's what I would do. This is like a very, very quick answer to a very broad topic. I would recommend you to watch the migration from Service Portal to Employee Center Academy session. The link for that is in the slides. And I would also encourage you to join the Employee Center Deployment Office Hours, where we discuss topics like this at Stretch.
Thank you. And I think the one that the webinar you were mentioning is the one from November 17th.
Yes.
I watched it. Yeah. Is that the one?
Is it 17? That 17 sounds way back. It's probably 19.
There was a
November 17th. Okay,
yeah.
Not 2017. Okay, yeah, probably that. Yes.
I saw it yesterday. Yeah, that was very, very helpful. Thank you. And I am already part of the office hours. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. All right, so let me look at the chat. Rohan, Smriti, any question that you think we should answer live? Okay. I'm seeing some requests on where we can improve. I really appreciate those feedbacks. Please do send them our way. And we're on top of the hour, so I'm going to let everyone carry on with their day. Any of the unanswered questions we will also answer in a Q&A format, which will be placed on the event page for this. So thank you so much, everyone, for your participation, and we'll follow up with anyone who has unanswered questions. Thank you.
Thank you.